Videos for business leaders who want to continuously improve their own skills and those of their employees with the goal of mastery, whether they have an expert mentor or not. So essentially, this is going to be an ongoing series. This is part one of, I don't know how many yet. It's a book review for Robert Greene's book, Mastery. So watch to the end for bonus material on how to pursue mastery until you can make it your career, specific tips as to how to do that, and a recommended video, which is an introduction to how to do deliberate practice properly from its inventor, K. Anders Ericsson. It's a very short video, but it's very excellent, and it does give you enough of an introduction to get you started. But the rabbit hole goes deep if you want to go deep. Okay, so the big picture summary for this is I'm going to start with the point and then work backwards from there. So this is essentially leverage your current job and life circumstances to learn skills to create your own self-apprenticeship until you can create your own job using your innate vocation, learned and earned mastery. So if that long-winded sentence is enough that you think you can go do this on your own, by all means, you can stop watching here and continue on trying on your own. You don't need to watch any further. You can try applying it all by yourself. If, however, you have the humility to know there are things you don't know, you're already on the path to mastery and will probably want to watch on. Glasses are sitting weird today. There we go. So this is by far the best and most truthful book about the topic of mastery and how to attain it that I've ever read. This is actually a book I reviewed probably almost 2 years ago now. I'm just converting this text summary, this article summary, I'll put the link to that in the description, into a video summary of the same stuff. So pursuing your dreams will be the hardest thing you'll ever do, but also the most meaningful. Like all of his books, all of Robert Greene's books, it's massive. It's like 16 hours and 9 minutes as an audiobook compared to 7 to 8 hours, which is a typical length of an audiobook. So it's a big, long book, as I said, as are virtually every one of his books. You should know that while Greene's brilliant, that from listening to the 48 Laws of Power, actually, I think I've listened to now 3 or 4 of his books, he's almost certainly also a sociopath. I know that comes out of left field, but it's important to know that. In other words, take what he says that you think is good, but he seems to have virtually a Machiavellian moral compass. Do this because it will work regardless of the consequences of ethics behind it. I'm not okay with that. So essentially what it is, though, is despite that, his books are worth reading, even if you disagree with much of what he says in books like the 48 Laws of Power, as I do. And in fact, in not Mastery, I can't remember the name of the other book that I've read or half read and just quit because it was like same shit, different pile, same sociopathic tendencies. So I just stopped on that 3rd or 4th book of his because it was just a lot of redundancy after a while. So that said, choose one of his books and listen knowing that all of his books are largely redundant to one another after you listen to the first 1 or 2 of his books. What I like about Greene is he tells more truth and shares more insight into achieving mastery than any other book I've read. So he tells you unpopular truths that, oh, it's easy, yay! That is horse shit. Because if it's mastery, and if it was easy, then how come everybody isn't a master? Because the truth is, it isn't easy, and most people will quit long before they reach anything remotely close to a status anybody could describe honestly as mastery. So what follows are some of the important misconceptions that Greene has about people he refers to in his book. And this is also important, though his illustrations are correct, the people who he applies them to and the information he gives you is wrong. And I think you deserve to know that. So the first being Buckminster Fuller. Greene and most other people on Earth, for that matter, are unaware that Buckminster Fuller wasn't the inventor of geodesic or geodesic domes, depending on how you want to pronounce it. Dr. Walther Bausfeld was awarded a German patent in June 1925, and built a geodesic dome 26 years before Fuller's US patent, which is basically false claims about being the inventor, but he is the real individual who popularized the idea of the geodesic dome. I was a fan and still am of geodesic domes. I think they're really cool, but as an inventor, I feel a moral obligation to let you know that Fuller is full of shit to say that he was the one who invented it. And here's some evidence of that. Fuller's own words about the maximum recommended diameter of such domes suggests he was fully aware of Bausfeld's work. That is, I believe he said the maximum dome diameter should be 26 feet, and his recommended maximum dome diameter is identical to that which was used in the 1925 patent description. And even so, there are actually ancient Chinese sculptures which show the, sometimes they're called food dogs. Anyway, in Chinese sculpture and Chinese art, which show spheres divided into triangular structures. So neither of them are truly the ones who invented it, so much as at least Dr. Bausfeld was the one who invented it in modern times, and Fuller basically just stole the idea, or so it seems, and took credit for it. So this despicable, in my opinion, or is despicable in my opinion, since it's what made Fuller famous. He became famous from something that wasn't his, essentially stealing someone's invention and taking credit for it. As an inventor myself, this is a cardinal sin in our universe. I have to take a drink. My throat is already dying. So yeah, that's not okay. If you're going to be an inventor, stealing someone's invention is about the lowest form of transgression that you can do. So second, Greene overstates Mozart's innate talent, despite the fact that Daniel Coyle evidences why that's false in his book, The Talent Code, as does Malcolm Gladwell in Outliers. There's essentially, it's ironic, in fact, that Greene's core argument in Mastery is that mastery is something that's hard earned, in the same way that Daniel Coyle describes in The Talent Code. And yet he describes Mozart as being naturally talented, when in fact that's not at all the case. And there's lots of historical evidence and the two books I've cited that go into the details of that. And yet Greene pretends or mistakes that Mozart was innately talented, despite his father training him excessively from the earliest age he was capable. He was below 6, maybe even 2 or 3 years old when his father first started drilling him in music, and his father was a proficient and highly skilled music teacher and musician himself. So Mozart was not a born talent, he was a made talent. So despite those shortcomings, I think it's important that you know those, because I just believe we shouldn't spread bullshit as truth. Greene's overall thesis remains the best template for achieving the kind of earned mastery all or most of us have access to with 10,000 plus hours of deliberate practice. So he argues that the only path is to strive to develop and master your innate vocation. Now, I very much agree with this argument. That is, we have something we're drawn to, or at least most of us do, that we may or may not pursue, but that we do have an innate vocation, something that's fascinating or interesting or passionate enough for us from an early age. That's one of the things I'm doing with Crush It Club, which is actually leading to a bigger picture that I don't often share, other than to say I'm an inventor first, and that Crush It Club and all that I'm doing there are simply inventions applied to business problems, neuroscience, psychology, mindset, and things like that. So nothing but what you love doing will keep you going for all the years of hard and usually completely unrewarded work it will take to achieve any kind of true or real mastery. That is, if you look at most of the best people in the world, they loved what they did and they spent many years doing it before anybody knew who they were or cared who they were. And typically, as the research from K. Anders Ericsson has indicated, an average of around 10,000 hours, and this is an important point, to attain the beginning of mastery, not the arrival at mastery. So Greene's book is the first I've read that honestly states that you're basically on your own when it comes to achieving mastery, and that even your family and loved ones are likely to actively work against you following on this path. I can tell you from direct, personal, and lifelong reference from my own life that is true. Your family will lovingly discourage you away from something that is challenging for fear that you might fail, rather than saying, okay, have a good career, do that on the side, and I'll support you all the way. Unfortunately, people are so fearful of failure, even though that is the only path to mastery and excellence. So Greene rightly warns you to proactively avoid a good job. Again, I totally agree with this. You get a good, reliable job that makes your life essentially meaningless. And it's basically an easy, short-term and profitable in favor of one that is challenging and increases your skills towards your innate mastery. I think the latter is better, and there's lots of evidence, in fact, empirical evidence, that the challenging, hard, long-term job that increases your skills is more likely to cause you to succeed, but is never guaranteed. Better yet, he describes the approaches you should take to steer your career to serve the goal of mastery, which in the end leads to superior qualification, income, and demand for your services. So that's really the whole part. This is part one, as I said, of an ongoing series. Thank you for watching this far. We're already to the bonus material, and that is how to pursue your mastery until it becomes a career. Now, essentially, I've already started to cover this, but I'll cover the rest essentially off the cuff, and that is any job you take. Obviously, we all have to make money. We have to make a living. Doesn't move you in the direction. Now, all other things being equal, take the job that gives you at least one slice of that self-mastery which you're pursuing. The best way to do this, obviously, is to have a plan. That is, when you go for a job, qualify. How can this serve my bigger picture while helping me make a living? And if it doesn't, not that you shouldn't take that job, especially if that's the only option open to you, but understand that that is a temporary stepping stone, which most jobs are for most people, especially those pursuing mastery, and be ever on the lookout for the next and upcoming jobs which may be a fit for teaching you a piece of your own mastery. In the ideal circumstance and in bygone times, there were actually masters and apprentices, but that system and your likelihood of finding somebody who's qualified to help you become a master at what you're interested in is extremely unlikely, but not impossible. If that path is available to you, and you certainly should research it, then take it. Become an apprentice, even become an unpaid apprentice, whatever it takes, if and only if you can still make a living in the meantime. And if you can't, in the meantime, take the best damn job you can that serves your needs for now and still allows you the time and availability to do and pursue what is your mastery while ever looking for jobs that can move you closer to that. It's unfortunate that in this era, we still have employers who are basically in the industrial era thinking that we exist to help them make a profit. And that's stupid. And the empirical evidence supports the idea that, in fact, if as employers, we help people achieve their goals, they will be more engaged and we will be more profitable as businesses. And this has been demonstrated over and over again. Yet, like most truly good and scientifically validated and empirically validated business practices, most companies don't practice them. And this is probably why most companies, even the most successful, oftentimes die in less than a century. Some who don't, and many who don't, or who are doing the best in our modern era and in every era, have taken those parts to heart, that your employees are your primary asset. Kind of going off topic here, but we're going to leave it at that with the video, the recommended video, which will be a video from K. Anders Ericsson. We'll put a link there to it, and I'll put it in the description, which is K. Anders Ericsson himself talking about deliberate practice and how to do it. I would describe it as an introduction. It could get you started, but there's some key points missing. And if you want to go deeper, I would recommend you read his book, Peak, the New Science of Expertise. He is, in fact, the inventor of the 10,000-hour rule that Malcolm Gladwell misinterprets and other half-assed fake experts claim is completely unnecessary, but the data does not support such ridiculous claims. It takes most people a lifetime to reach mastery. This is part one. As I said, there will be ongoing parts, but that's it for Crush It Club 231 Mastery Book Review Part 1. My name is Tim B. Greene. Bye for now.